time around. And we'll jump right into things. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining September's Network Learning session. Today, we're excited to explore a tribal learning journey. This network learning series is a part of our ongoing network development efforts to bring partners together, both to highlight the vital conditions framework and to also showcase the incredible work that's happening across our region. Um, this year's topics have stemmed out of last year's annual summit, and our summit is coming up again. More to come at the end of today's session on that. And yeah, they are designed to spark collaboration, share opportunities, and celebrate the partners who are strengthening our communities. Uh, Stacy, can we jump onto the next slide, please? So as we take a look at our agenda, I'd like to invite you all to share in the chat what traditional lands you're joining from today. And you can use the link that I'm going to enter into the chat um, to find that. And just feel free to share that in the chat, and I'll walk us through the agenda as you all make your way into the chat room. And before we actually jump into the actual agenda piece, I'd also just like to recognize that as an organization, we are still evolving in our tribal engagement and in our land acknowledgement practice. We look forward to working with our future tribal manager that we just hired to shape this together, and we're certainly grateful for the opportunity to learn from our guest speakers today and get any additional insight from them on how to make this happen. So with that being said, we will certainly hear from Meghan Francis with the Colville Confederated Tribes. Um, we'll turn it over to Michaela Vendiola from North Sound ACH. We have some facilitated Q&A um, also planned out for the rest of this session, and then we'll dive into smaller group discussions before we reconvene back as a larger group for reflections and any network updates, which I will wrap up at the end. Next slide, Stacy. And then certainly last but not least, I'd like to just go over today's goals, and that is to uh, learn and deepen on our understanding of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, understand tribal priorities, and find collaborative opportunities to learn from our sister agency, North Sound ACH, and their partnerships with local tribes, and to stay updated on federal and state policy changes that are impacting our tribal communities. With that being said, I believe I'm turning it over to Monty to formally introduce our guest speakers.
Thanks, Veronica. Yeah, I'm Monty. Really am with the Community Initiatives Network, and delighted to join you all for this conversation as we've had the good fortune of working both with North Central and our guest speaker in the North Sound. And I think we have an amazing conversation coming up. And I don't know, Stacey, remember we have a slide or two, but just kind of building on what Veronica shared. I think, again, the idea with these is to continue to build a norm around the vital conditions as a way of seeing our communities and seeing our way forward and understanding our past. And, the part of the vital conditions is not just organizing around these seven vital conditions, that all people need to thrive in the environments in which we thrive, the natural environments. It's also a way of looking at and understanding our legacies, our past legacies of harm and genocide and stolen land and cultural erasure, and also the legacies of promise and looking forward and really understanding healing. And I think you'll hear through the conversations today just the possibilities of understanding the whole trajectory and the beautiful story of some of the relationships that have formed in your respective regions around what a journey looks like of people coming together and reconciling and seeing their future together. So I think on that note, we have two speakers. And oh, Stacey, you do have the slides up, and I just don't have it on my screen. And I just recently have met Megan and really enjoyed a couple of conversations. I don't know her as well, but she's going to share a lot around kind of the work that's emerging there with the Colville tribes. And then Michaela Vendiola, who I've had the good privilege of knowing for the last 7 years, and she's going to share a little bit around as Veronica suggests the tribal journey that they've been on with the tribes of the Salish Sea, and that might spark some ideas around what's possible in North Central Washington. So, without further ado, Megan, I think we're going to kick it off to you to share a little bit and add some context from your perspective.
Thank you. Hello, Tilhust Istakunchu, Meghan Francis. I am a member of the Colville Business Council, and I'm also a executive board member of Thriving Together. So I'm happy to be a part of this partnership and sharing the work that we're doing in regards to the vital conditions for our community. I just wanted to start off with this group photo here. This is our Colville Business Council. We are a sovereign nation, and this is our elected body. And that is our government building where we have most of our programs. And is it possible to go to the link, thecolvilletribes.com, or should I do that? Sorry, I forgot to run that through in the.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, I think we can make our way there. Thank you, Stacey. And
So while Stacy finds it, I just wanted to go over our org chart and give everyone an idea of what the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation does. Um, a lot of the work that we do from the outside looks like environmental work. We have a natural resources, a really robust natural resource program, but we also have our healthcare authority that we're establishing. We do a lot of work in education, a lot of work with our youth and our elders. And so I just wanted to highlight that our structure and what we're doing in regards to our strategic goals and our plans and looking out for our future. So if you can scroll down to the bottom, the very bottom of the website, there is the organizational chart. And I mentioned this at the summit last year, so we have about 70 programs, and I did mention natural resources is what we're really known for with our fish work, our hatchery, our wildlife, our environmental trust department. We have huge litigations with Canada over Tecominco and the pollution of the Columbia River, and just hunting rights in our traditional territories, which spans 39 million acres from Canada into Oregon and parts of Idaho, and of course, Eastern Washington. So that just shows that we have a large political arm when it comes to our sovereignty and our government and the laws that we abide by. And here, the light green is our education and employment division. So we have our Head Starts in every community. We have four major communities. Employment and training, which helps our adult learners become certified or give them opportunity to get more training in their roles. With Voc Rehab, we have our own tribal Voc Rehab, and all of our clients are able to get state Voc Rehab as well. Our TANF program, PSIS is our Pascal Sherman Indian School. So that's a school that we govern ourselves. It's a state compact school, but it's also a Bureau of Indian Education. So that was formerly St. Mary's Mission. That was a boarding school through the churches. PSIS still is a boarding school, but it's operated by the tribe. And we have our own school board, and then our tribal government oversees them. We have community centers in each of our community, which is really important to the well-being of our community, taking care of our young people, making sure that we're taking care of our elders and our people when they are no longer with us. We have large ceremonies, and our communities really come together during those times. Our language program, our higher education program, our Boys and Girls Clubs. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the vital conditions that we as a tribe, we do. We take care of our people. We get labeled as like almost socialists, but at the same time, we really do need to take care of each other. Our human resources, we have regular programs like accounting and purchasing, benefits department, HR department. What's not on this org chart is we have been developing our own healthcare authority. So right now, as of today, two of our clinics are IHS clinics, and that is Indian Health Services. And so those services are governed by the federal government, our medication, our referrals out to specialists, all of that is governed through the government. Hiring is through the government. But we're in the process of 638ing all of those two clinics, and we have Lake Roosevelt Community Health Center in Inchelem and in Keller. And so after October 1, we will assume self-determination over health care, and we'll have our own healthcare authority where we're going to have our behavioral health, our tribal health, um, any anything you could think of, optometry, physical therapy, aftercare. We have our own convalescent center, so we take care of our elders when they can no longer live in their own homes. So if we want, we could go back to the slide deck, please. So I kind of went over our org chart, what we do, our healthcare authority, where we're going with our strategy with our healthcare. And one of the main points that I wanted to make today was about our North Star initiative and how we can be resources for each other and what our intentions are with the North Star. And just so you know, the North Star is a Washington State prevention program. And so we were funded by the Healthcare Authority as well as Northwest Portland Area Indian Health Board. And there's 5 pilot tribes: the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation, Tulalip Tribes, Swinomish Tribes, Lummi, and Jamestown S'Klallam. And actually, right now, I'm at Sun Mountain Lodge in Winthrop, and we're going through our data. We're at a data summit, and you can go to the next slide, please. So I really wanted to highlight the North Star Project because this is one of our big initiatives that we're working on towards opioid prevention, alcohol prevention, and just making sure that our students, our young people have that well-being taken care of. And so we have a pre-survey training, and that's where we are today. We're looking at the survey, and I'll go over some of the data from Iceland. The Planet Youth is based out of the Icelandic prevention model, which was developed in the 1990s through Iceland. And they have over 26 different countries that are participating in Planet Youth now. And the United States is one of them through Washington State with the Washington State Prevention. I think, yeah, Nick can correct me if I'm wrong later. But we do have other places in the United States that are Planet Youth. We have friends in Canada that are Planet Youth. And so it's really helpful because these guys have data and they're showing the differences they've made by connecting with their young people and finding out where they are, what their environment is like, and what challenges they have. And then as a group, we will assess that and try to prevent some of the things that our young people are going through. So we have about 10 school districts that our students attend on the Colville Reservation that reside on the reservation. We have students throughout the entire state. And so eventually our goal and our hope is with this pilot project, we can show that we are capturing live data and making a difference in our communities. Because right now we have the Healthy Youth Survey through the Healthcare Authority, but unfortunately that doesn't work for us. A lot of our information is suppressed. A lot of our students don't take that data, don't take that survey, so we don't have any data through the Healthy Youth Survey. So we were excited to jump on this because we will be in control of our data. We can ask specific questions about our language and culture. And some of the questions that Planet Youth has already established, we're going to carry those forward. So we're building our relationships with our schools on step 2. Step 3, um, we're ensuring that the school boards are on board. Our schools are here today with us here at Sun Mountain going over the survey. Once we complete what the survey will look like, we're going to deliver it to our students in the school districts. And this will be done annually with a specific age group. So in Iceland, they did it with 10th graders. And so they were able to see annually how the environment has changed and how they can address some of the challenges that their community has. It's really important to have a high response rate. And so this gives us the opportunity, like our youth development program, our North Star program, any JOM parent committee, anyone that we work closely with can be a part of ensuring that our students are, and our parents and our school districts are aware that this survey will be taking place, just so we can ensure that we have an 80% response rate. And this will happen annually. So it's steps 1 through 10, and we're just going to go through it every year. Next slide, please. So some of the questions that we're looking at is how can we capture the risks in our community and what's relevant to each community. On the Colville Reservation, we have 4 different districts, and our questions might look different than what Swinomish is going to ask, or what Jamestown S'Klallam is going to ask. We don't have malls, we don't have places where our kids can go. We're really rural. And so some of those questions might look like, do you hang out at the lake during after hours? Next slide, please. Just trying to define where our students are. So we have these different domains that we're going to ask about. So we're going to ask about their family. We're going to ask about their friends group. How do they feel at school? Do they feel safe? Do they feel heard? Do they see their language and their culture in their school district? And leisure, like what do you do after school? Do your parents know where you are after school? Do you have a curfew? And so every student in this age group is going to be asked these questions, and we'll be able to see the detriments in different areas. And some of the questions that Iceland is asking now is like how much screen time do you have? Do you drink energy drinks? Are you dealing with cyberbullying? So right now we're focused on cannabis use, alcohol use, tobacco use, and eventually we want to worry about other things when we don't have to worry about those anymore. Next slide, please. So some of the examples from the survey in Iceland was 95%, 95, sorry, 94% feel safe at home often or very often. You could take a look at some of these, but like 95% of parents disapprove cannabis use, 46% disapprove drunkenness. So this gives us an idea of what the family thinks about their students and what they're doing outside of school, whether they spend time together. Do the parents know where they are? Do they know who they're with? And do they have rules at home? So this will give us a good snapshot, and we'll be able to look at it through the Colville Reservation, or we can look at the Nispelem District, OMAC District, or we can even go even deeper and look at Grand Coulee Dam School District specifically, Nispelem School District specifically. So these will really help not just our whole entire reservation to navigate what our environment is like and what we need to address, but we could also look specifically at each school district. Next slide, please. So here's an example of females and males and how often they feel bored with their schoolwork. Do they think the adults care about them? Do they have friends that care about them? Like these are things that we really want to be made aware of just to make sure that we're giving our students that wraparound care. Like how can we address this and what do we need to change? Do we need to look at policies? Do we need to incorporate more activities for our kids to feel connected? Um, the The main thing about this initiative, though, is that we're including our children. And one of the best things that we've been saying is nothing about us without us, or nothing about you without you. And so we've been really involving our youth. We have youth here at the data retreat, so they're also looking at these questions, and we're just involving them, like even how we phrase questions, do you think this is triggering? Do you think this would be good for your age group? And they're giving us feedback that we hadn't thought of. Next slide, please. So we'll learn about their peer groups, how often they get drunk at their age, do they vape, have they used cannabis, and we'll be looking at it from males to females. So this will just give us a really good grasp of what issues we're facing and how we will, account for that. Next slide, please. One of the really core things about the North Star Initiative is creating safe places for our kids. I mentioned we have community centers, we have boys and girls clubs, we have great relationships with our school districts. They have after school activities. A lot of our local towns have sports. So, what we need to ask our kids is, what do you guys want to do? Are you an artist? Are you a musician? Do you feel like we should be doing more equestrian? Like, are you just finding out what the kids want and creating those safe places? In Iceland, they have amazing, amazing community centers. They call them leisure halls, and they're connected to their schools. And so the kids literally ride their bikes across the street or walk across the street. And some of them, they're attached to the school district. And so they're able to capture those kids and keep them in this safe place. And some of those kids, they start out really young and they're taking like they're signed up for these leagues, soccer leagues, and then when they get older, they become the coach. So it creates this like wraparound care and keeps the kids involved and creates this mentorship program. Next slide, please. And community, we're looking, is your community safe? Do you feel safe in your neighborhood? Is there good things for you to do there? And each community has their own coalition, and that's been step one for us, and it's been kind of a big hurdle getting people bought in. Everyone's like, oh, this is kumbaya. Like, how are you guys going to create this big, huge change in your communities? And the same people that were asking these hard questions were saying, like, we're going to work together and we're going to find out what our kids are doing and what our needs are. And as a community and as a tribe and all of our partners, is how can we address this and how can we create safe places and allow our students to be healthy and loved and cared about and thrive and create opportunities for them to make our communities better. Next slide, please. And I really think that this ties into the work that Thriving Together does, because we are looking at their well-being. Are you getting enough sleep? Do you have mental health care? Um, how do you feel physically? And how do you feel? Are you calm? Are you relaxed? Do you have issues? Do you have bullies? Are you getting bullied by an individual? Is there a group that's bullying you? Like, it's about 50 to 60 questions, and it will take a student about 20 minutes to fill this survey out, but we're really excited to see what we're going to learn and how we can address our students' well-being. Next slide. Some of the biggest eye openers was the substance use that Iceland has showed us. And over time, their numbers have decreased by a lot. And so we're really looking forward to decreasing and eliminating some of the substance use and alcohol use by our young people. Next slide, please. Okay, back, please. So I know I'm just gonna put him on the spot here, but Nick Lewis was a big part of the North Star work and getting the tribes involved. And I have about 3 minutes left, so I just wanted to provide Nick the opportunity if he wanted to mention anything that I didn't mention about the North Star work that the 5 tribes are doing and how it relates to our tribal government and our partners with Thriving Together.
I appreciate that, Megan, and it's good to see everyone on here. Michaela, it's good to see you. Always a connection home. In my previous life, I served 9 years on the Lummi Tribal Council. Did a lot of work nationally with healthcare. At one time was the vice chair on the North Sound ACH, and I just looked and I still seen my name on the board of directors still. I'm like, didn't know I was still on there, but uh, really appreciate this conversation. Meghan, you did an amazing job covering it. But I think one thing I wanted to add in my previous roles, I worked a lot in this type of area about prevention, looking more upriver, trying to address the fentanyl, housing, homelessness, and how everything really is just connected. And as Meghan had shared, well, the state does a good job and puts a lot of effort into a survey that collects data like the Healthy Youth Survey. That's only done every 2 years, and in a lot of areas, the data is suppressed because it doesn't get to the levels it needs to. Going back into my previous roles as a policymaker, we often see policies, things get voted on or pushed, and we're not the experts in every area. I might have had my expertise in one area, but I don't know what I don't know. And so the thought with this, when we were working at its infancy to bring this to the states, to Washington State and the tribes, was how can we get data, because it's hard to get in the policymakers' hands how we fund things. There's a lot of efforts around data collection, but they're all siloed and splintered, and a lot of it's suppressed, and we don't know how to get it from the surveys to all the way up to the chain of command to those that are deciding things. And what I really was inspired when we worked on this was that data gets turned around in 8 weeks. So once the surveys are collected, we get that data in the policymakers' hands within 8 weeks. Really, we always have been focused on empowering our youth, as Meghan has shared. And in that model, they have youth that are sitting at the table with us. In many of our tribes, we have youth councils, which are getting empowered as well. And so it's really just empowering our youth's voice to have a say more, and make that difference. And so it was really about making sure that when we do make decisions on policy, we have data to back us up. And I think this also made me reflect a lot, and why I wanted to transition away from my previous role. I was gone 3 weeks out of the month. And here I was talking about strengthening the families, and then I was never home to strengthen my own family. My kids did a gut check on me and said, "You talk about this, but then you're not home. You're out doing all this other work." And it kind of fueled I need to step away. I want to step away. And I'm thankful that I'm able to help work here with Colville now, uh, because my kids are Colville. So it was really important for me to honor Colville and help be supportive of this work. I think the other part, when we look at making policy, and policy can be simple to write out, right? You can write a policy, procedures, legislation, but it often always also comes down to funding. How do we fund things? When we look at addressing these issues, we don't talk about ACEs or social determinants of health as often as we should. If we're a child growing up in a home where there's no food, or they're witnessing domestic violence and drug use, that's the world that they see. And we don't talk about how we get back to really strengthening the family. That's what this data is going to help us with when we make those policy decisions. As a tribe does it 638 and takes the self-governance mentality into designing policies and its funding structures. And when we tie things to social determinants of health and ACEs, we can also create policy that gives more flexibility to those Medicaid funds that we often see so many restrictions on. And that's what some of the tribes have done. It's not talked about as widely, but this was the avenue that many of us a few years ago said this is the best way to really do that. Is we're using data that can be widely accepted to how we can create the policies to create more flexibility with our funds. If you're having that family that's witnessing domestic violence, well, now you can create policies and structure where you fund family, strengthening family. activities. So you don't just focus on the youth, because often we in the United States system we put the burden on the youth itself and not on the family unit. Um, and I think that's a really big shift. So again, getting data to guide how we decide things, and then this is also giving us the ability to redesign how we can utilize our funds to fund those upriver prevention efforts that the tribes or the communities say this is what we need, because we don't have that flexibility often in many of the communities, and this is a way that we can do that. It doesn't solve everything, but it's at least giving our teams, our staff, our people that are doing the work and working with families an avenue to have these prevention things funded better where they're not in other areas. So just wanted to add that was a big part of why we were doing this back then.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, Nick and Megan, for laying all that out. And we'll have a chance after Michaela goes to see what other questions are coming up and to get a little bit of dialogue. But it's really amazing to hear about this holistic approach and really strategic use of data. And thanks for your vulnerability, Nick and Megan, and sharing kind of what's so promising to build on here. And let me, invite Michaela to share a little bit about their tribal learning journey and what's going on as a neighbor in Washington.
Thank you, Monty. Hi, everyone. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Can you see that okay? Great. So my name is Michaela Vendiola. Well, I can greet you in the language. Hatchlahale, Michaela Vendiola Seatstat, Yaidoat Seatstat, Agaida Kada Numu Chach, Shwarabs Chach, Huolami Chach. My name is Michaela Vendiola. I'm an enrolled member of the Walker River Paiute tribe, and I'm Swinomish and Lummi, and I grew up on the Lummi Indian Reservation. I'm the tribal liaison for North Sound Accountable Communities of Health, and I've been with my organization for over 6 years and in my role for over 4 now. And today I was asked to come in and talk a little bit about the journey that North Sound ACH has been on in regards to learning about the tribes and building relationships with the tribes in our region. And I think I'll preface by saying that our two regions are they're sister regions, but we look very different in terms of, how relationships will be built with the tribes here versus in North Central. And the reason for that is because in North Sound, we have 8 sovereign nations in our region. And from my understanding in North Central, it's only Colville. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to build authentic and, really strong relationships in North Central. And I can share just a little bit about what we've done. This is just a photo of my traditional territory. This is taken on Whidbey Island, which is the traditional territory of Swinomish. It's also a central location for native folks who come from like the peninsula area, so Skokomish, for example. And then, yeah, just so wanted to share that. So this is the timeline that I've put together for today. Of the work that has gone into the tribal relationships at North Sound ACH. And the timeline predates my hire date, but between 2015 and 2017, there was invitation to the tribes to sit on the board of North Sound ACH. And historically, when tribes have been asked to sit on a board, there's one seat for one Native person. And I'm sure you all can understand based on just, the way that Megan described the organizational government of Colville tribe, why one representative wouldn't fit for 8 nations. So the structure of North Sound ACH's board has been that we offer and hold 8 seats for each of the 8 tribes in the region. And we also have developed a tribal alignment committee, which is a committee of our board that those seats also sit on. And that committee really vets, the work that I'm doing and the work and direction that North Sound ACH is taking in regards to the relationships with the tribes. It's also a place where we get direction about how we can support the tribes in the efforts that they're making um, regarding health and other. The first tribal liaison for North Sound ACH was hired in March of 2018. And there was another one after the first hire, so two, and then me. I'm the third one. And the important piece about the tribal liaison position is that all of the hires have been from the local tribes in the area. So the first hire, her name was Candace Wilson, and she's Lummi. The second was Tempest Dawson, and she's Tulalip. And then me, I'm Swinomish and Lummi. Candace introduced Liz Baxter, our CEO, to Daryl Hilaire, who's the executive director for an organization called Children of the Setting Sun Productions. Some of you might be familiar with the work that they do, but they're a Native operated and led organization that focuses on video making and filmmaking. And they're a really great organization to get to know if you're not familiar with them. They produce a lot of amazing visual imagery about, Coast Salish territory and the Native people that live in our area. Also in 2018, we developed our land acknowledgement statement with the tribal alignment committee that I discussed. So our statement wasn't, just written by somebody and then used. It was developed by the committee that should have the authority to create such a statement and approved by them. So we worked in partnership with the tribal delegates to create our land acknowledgement statement. And then also in 2018, our CEO began to release undisclosed funds to each of the 8 tribes, regardless of their status on our board or the level of engagement that they had with us. And Liz wanted me to emphasize that those funds are one strong way to uphold tribal sovereignty in a financial matter. So giving funds to tribes for them to decide what the best use is. Let's see. This is kind of a timeline that includes all of the ongoing work that we also are engaged in. From 2018 to now, we have been engaging in a tribal and equity learning journey. This has a lot of moving parts to it and, engagement from a lot of people, including Monty and Stacy and their team, community initiatives and engagement from all of the 8 tribes that are in our region. And oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't even say which tribes those are. So from north to south, it's Nooksack, Lummi, Upper Skagit, Samish, Swinomish, Soxswaddle, Stillaguamish, and Tulalip tribes. Really strong nations that come from Coast Salish region. And okay, so 2020 comes, I'm hired by then, and I write this land acknowledgement brief, which really was focused on helping our partners understand the importance of a land acknowledgement and also supporting them in drafting one of their own. It also details the steps that North Sound ACH took to create ours. One ongoing task that I have as the tribal liaison is to do site visits or virtual visits with the tribal health centers and the upper administrators at the health centers. There can be turnover in tribes and just as any other place, and so being able to keep up with who's in the positions that we want to collaborate with is important. Also ongoing and part of the work that I do is these Tuesday tribal learning written pieces, And it's just a blog post. It's actually live now on our community commons, if you want to check it out. But I write these posts that are about, topics that are important to the tribes and to Native people in Coast Salish territory. So everything, ranging from um, canoe journey to the most recent one is about, the history of boarding schools in Washington State and Orange Shirt Day, which is coming up. We also talk about like Indigenous Peoples Day, and so it provides like a history and an opportunity for staff and partners to continue learning about topics that might be unfamiliar to them. Lastly, one of the most important parts of our biannual partner convenings that happen twice yearly are the Native representation and attendance by Native organizations at those convenings. Um, and in this slide deck, I provide photos and examples of some of the people that we've worked with. And what we do is we ask for two things. Someone from the most local tribe to where the convening is being held to do an opening or share words about like why is health and health equity important and how does that relate to the work that the tribes are doing. And we also invite part Native organization partners to present about the work that they're doing during the actual convening. So I make that distinction because it's important to not only include Native people in openings, but to allow them and give them time to share about the work that they're doing in their communities. So the work like the North Star that Megan and Nick have been working on for a long time, that kind of information can be its own presentation during a partner convening. Um, this is our land acknowledgement, and I just wanted to put it in here so you all can see, the example that we have. We use this at the start of every all staff meeting or team meeting. We use it during our partner convenings. We use it during our board meetings. And like I said, it was crafted in partnership with the tribes in our region and the tribes that are participating on our tribal alignment committee. These are the photos, examples of, tribal leaders that we've worked with over the years. One important piece that I should mention is that so Liz Baxter and Tiffany Edlin, Tiffany runs our governance and board structure, made it a point to host board meetings in each of the 8 tribes in the region. And I remember the first board meeting that I attended as a project coordinator for North Sound ACH was held on my home territory in Swinomish. And our chairperson, Brian Clattisby, opened up the space for us in a really good way and, talked about the importance of relationships and working together. And so this is him, and this isn't the board meeting or anything, but a photo that my father took. This is when he's talking to the elders, Swinomish elders, and it's an exclusive club. You can't go to the lunch if you're not an elder, so I always like to see photos from that. In 2023, our January convening was opened by Cheryl Racer, Hugh Edwards, and Sophie Bailey. Cheryl Racer has served on our board and our tribal alignment committee for a number of years, and she was the chairwoman of our board and the chairwoman of our tribal alignment committee at various times. And I just have a lot of appreciation for the work that she does. Her commitment time was done, and she's not serving with us anymore. But yeah, just really directed the work that we do, especially in Swinomish, and really appreciative for her engagement with us. This is Dunny Sutton or Michael Vendiola, my father. He did the opening for our 2023 August convening at Swinomish. him and Liz are good buddies, and yeah, just examples of people we've worked with. So this is our most recent partner convening, and it was hosted in August 2025 at the Tulalip Resort and Casino. And some of you might know who this is. This is Teresa Sheldon. She serves on the Tulalip Board of Directors. Um, and her, when you invite tribal leaders to speak, they bring immense amount of knowledge and history of the tribes, and see a lot of connection points that we wouldn't otherwise get to hear about. And I really appreciated her opening words for us this past August, and it was like a surprise keynote we got to hear. So um, this is my contact, and thank yous in the language, Pisha U, Haishka, Dahadubs, Ched. Um, yeah, let me stop sharing and just consult my notes real quick to see if I left anything out. Okay, so just lastly to wrap up, Liz, I wrote down a quote that she said recently when I checked in with her about this presentation, and she said that acknowledging that ACHs want to have these relationships, but we're not peer to peer with sovereign tribal nations. It really changes the time expectations, and we have to let go of the notion of the cadence of how things should be happening. This is another core part of honoring tribal sovereignty. Um, and I think I covered everything.
Mm, thanks,
Mhm.
Michaela. Yeah, and thanks for being here. By the way, Michaela's daughter is not feeling well today, and so I know you made an extra effort to be here. And I
Yeah,
think the other beauty of this last convening with the senator was your father again. He's been such an important part of our kickoff and creating a space and bridging, and you following in his footsteps. It's really a beautiful thing. So thank you.
thank you. Oh, right, the film. I'd like to show the film, Stacy. So, not only are North Sound ACH and North Central like sister organizations, but there's relationship between specifically Soxswatal tribe that's in the North Sound region and the tribes on the eastern side of the mountains. And one of the deliverables that Children of the Setting Sun Productions has made for us was providing 8 films from one from each of the 8 nations. And I'd like to share with you all this film that comes from Soxswatal tribe.
And we'll do a test here to make sure we've got audio. And if not, I'll do a quick shift in my audio settings. So we'll cross our fingers.
When you're hiking, it's just you. Easy to get lost in thought, easy to get lost in all the weight that you're carrying. Every time you take a step, you got to release some of that weight, some of that pressure you have on you. You'll open yourself up more when you're hiking. I am James Ironheart from Soxswatal Indian Tribe. Soxswatal is a unique place. It is located near the town of Darrington, Washington. Soxswatal was originally in Sauk Prairie and back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The town of Darrington burnt down the longhouses, and we got relocated here after we got done helping the Forest Service map out the Cascade Range. The weather is so unpredictable that you could have rain here, but then when you go over the mountain pass, you can get snow. in July. I was doing writing assessment, and I needed more practice with writing. So I started asking around some of our elders, and they would always say that we would hike over the pass. And that brought me to the idea of, hey, let's try hiking over the pass.
I'd spend the summers up here with my grandfather, and he would tell me there was a number of different trails that went up and over across Cascade Mountains. When James started talking about it, I always just started to get excited because, geez, if we can hike some simple trails, I'm going, I'm going to go along. Trekking poles.
So make sure when you're out, always get a good flashlight.
Yeah, good flashlight. No, be quiet. Just so we. Oh, okay. I said down there.
Asking for permission to go down this trail. Come on, let's go get our stuff.
Okay.
Because we are humans that share territory with the plant life, the animal life, and bug life. We have to ask permission to use the trails because this is their home. The big walk helps out with health in many different ways. That definitely there is mental health that happens because you can't go on the big walk and carry all that weight with you. And as soon as you do, you're going to want to go into the woods and start releasing that there healthily. What you bring into the woods is what you have. So if you can get rid of it there and you don't have to carry that weight, then that's awesome. That mental break that you got to push through, it can hit multiple different ways. Some people get grumpy, some people get angry, and they push through that. And then some people get like sad and emotional, and then you really got to push through that. And the only thing we can do as other hikers is pull some weight off from you. But that's only your physical. It's not your mental stuff.
The first hike was being funded by the Department of Health, because we have a number of people who are trying to combat diabetes here. And then we wanted to get people more active and interested in having a stronger, active life.
Of course, because you're out in the mountains and you're backpacking, up to 25 to 45, 55 pounds on your back, you're going to start losing weight.
Those trips were just awesome, to see, the sights and everything. And then to know, okay, at some point, our people did travel these paths.
Bear paw.
We were going to just take our time and appreciate everything around us. And it was a chance to share with our young ones, the different plants our people used to eat.
You'll see all sides of yourself when you hike. Some of the good sides, the bad sides, and all of you when you hike, and to be able to push through and go through some emotional stuff while you're out there. Like I said, it's a place to go lose some of the weight that you carry with you.
Thanks, Stacy. Um, I think I'm done. I'm just gonna start to populate into the chat some of the links that I talked about, or links to some of the things I talked about. So the land acknowledgement brief and CSSP, or Children of the Setting Sun Productions, also created a trifold handout that we used. So I'll put that into the chat. And I'm also going to provide the link to our network library that actually houses all 8 of the videos that are about the tribes in our region. So if you're interested in watching those, you can take time to do that.
Mm.
Hi, Shka.
Michaela, thank you so much for all that. And I'm kind of looking at Veronica and Stacy and wondering if we might, typically we would go into smaller groups, but just wondering, since we have Michaela here for a moment and Megan, and I don't know if Nick is still here, that we might just open it up to the larger group to see if we want to just have a little bit of a larger group kind of connection and reflection for those of you. Thank you for turning on your screens, those of you who can. If that's okay, maybe just Michaela, I wonder if you could just, that's such a beautiful video and there's so many of them. I'm wondering if you might, in your mind, either that particular video, what really stands out and touches you, and just the importance of storytelling, what that's been to the North Sound ACH and all of the partners.
Yeah, so that video I wanted to share today because it does connect our 2 regions, what they're talking about. And, they didn't talk about it in the video, but obviously there's a lot of stories about natives crossing the pass and, history there. And so that's why I wanted to show it. And then in terms of storytelling, working with Children of the Setting Sun Productions has given us, it's just such an honor to have them as part of our team. I feel like being able to help share out the voices of the tribal nations that we're working with, and it's helped our internal staff and our partners and our board, understand the tribal nations that are around them more and learn from them. Um, like I said before, it provides opportunities that we wouldn't have otherwise gone to experience.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to just kind of open this up to see, what's bubbling up for folks, either questions or reflections of the possibilities of kind of doing this work at a deeper level.
One thing, oh, is it okay? There was one thing I wanted to mention, if that was just okay, that I realized I forgot. Just retouching back on the part of the big intention on the North Star initiative. Tribes, I think, have often been seen as an afterthought. When I had my previous role and I'd go places, they say, "Oh, this isn't a tribal issue," and you feel like you kind of get dismissed. And that was a big struggle for me, because when I'm talking about prevention, mental health, it affects all of us, regardless of the color of our skin, the political beliefs. We're all struggling. Um, and one of the things that was shared that really stuck out is, when you see 2 little kids that don't have no knowledge of a world that we might live in, you put them in the room with toys, they just want to play and have fun, right? They don't have any thoughts about racism, hate, and all this other stuff. That's really a foreign concept. And when we talk about community prevention, and this is where I think on our systems we fail a lot. And it's not intentional by any ways, but we're just often in so many silos. But when we talk about community prevention, our communities are all checkerboarded. They're all a blending pot. They really are, whether you're on one side of the state or another side, even another country. And people just want to belong. People want to feel connected. So another big part of this was, it was really intentional, because I worked with a lot of conservative Republicans when we started this as well. Being in Bellingham, it's kind of a purple area, so I had to work with conservatives just as much. And when I would speak about, I want your kids to be healthy just like mine. I want your kids to be safe just like I want for mine. And you start speaking in a language that even if we have all these different beliefs or these views, we really all want the same thing, to be healthy and safe, and trying to lead conversations with that lens instead of a divide, lowering people's wall. So that was a really big intention, because when we look at this data and it comes out, it's going to be all of the kids in that community, whether it's here in Eastern Washington or over in Bellingham at Ferndale School. There's multiple different ethnic backgrounds in there. So that data help reflects all of us as a community, and it really brings us together as a community. So when the tribe's saying we're going to start investing in looking at social determinants of health and ACEs in ways we haven't, now we can bring our counterparts, the policymakers on the other side, together and say, you can do the same thing, and we can work in funding these initiatives together. And that was a big part of the original intention, is to bring people together like that, because we often weren't. So I just wanted to add that.
I see so many heads shaking and lighting up on that important reminder. What else does that spark for folks?
I just had kind of two quick things that I just wanted to say. First of all, thank you both. Thank you all for taking the time to present to us as well. And thank you for sharing the land acknowledgement brief. I'll be taking a look at that because for our Community Service Coalition, we do the land acknowledgement at the beginning of our meeting. So it's great to kind of get that education, to kind of know exactly if we're saying everything correctly. We definitely want to be respectful and definitely just be mindful of how we say the land acknowledgement. So I'll be taking a look at that and kind of getting some key points from there. So I appreciate that. And another note, I was also hearing about the youth, what you guys do. And we do a lot of work with the youth as well too here in the Wenatchee area. And so just kind of hearing that we're just kind of not alone in this, that you guys also kind of put that in practice, just to hear like what people or what youth are really struggling within. So I would kind of want to learn a little bit more as what you guys kind of do, if that's okay, just to see if that's something we can kind of learn off and kind of put that into our youth as well too. Because definitely here in the Wenatchee area, it's kind of like gang involvement and definitely, drug use, alcohol use. So I know a big thing is mental health. And like the video said, even if you're going on a quick hike or something, it definitely helps heal that heart. So I think kind of putting those practices to use and telling our youth, you're not alone in this. There's definitely other people that are going through similar things. So I think that would be a good resource for us to kind of just learn off and seeing what we can incorporate into our program as well too.
Thanks, Anne. I wonder, if Megan or Nick or Michaela want to add to that.
I can defer to them first, and I'll go last.
Well, I was just gonna say, our data, we wouldn't probably share that. I mean, we would have to talk about it as a governing body, like how we're gonna show the communities where we're at and how we've made changes in our youth outcomes. But I think we would be open to, because we want everyone to be on board. And eventually, every tribe in Washington or every school district in Washington, like Ferndale, he mentioned Ferndale's one of the school districts, they're doing it themselves. But a lot of their students are Lummi. So different school districts could also look at Planet Youth.
Wanted to.
Nick,
Oh, see if Michaela had a comment or.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so Megan is correct. Each tribe that's doing this has the right to, that's what self-governance sovereignty is. So they all might do it different. How the data is used or shared might be different. On the last trip we went to Iceland, brought Ferndale over there, their leadership, and introduced them to the people that we worked with, and they might be doing something a little bit different than the tribes, but there's going to be a point at some point in the future where, when it comes to data, it's like you want a strong family unit. I think that there's going to be things that get elevated where uh, it does bring us together more. I think one of the things that really stood out was how they empower their youth to have a vote and a voice. We often say that, but we're empty on our actions that support that. So over there, and just like with the tribes, when we selected the 5 tribes to be part of this, they all had youth councils. Not all the tribes have them, and they're still kind of evolving and growing and fulfilling their potential as the youth see fit, because this is really their future. We're just holding a space for them until they're ready to take over. And it takes trust. You have to earn that from the youth as well. And I don't think we often do a good job at that. And so it's finding pathways to really empower the youth or those that you're trying to target. Like, how can you really make their voice or their recommendations meaningful? How many of us have gone to spaces and we say, speak up and contribute, and then we say something and then it gets dismissed, and we're like, well, what's the point? Just because we're adults, we can feel that same way. It's even more so with the kids. So it's just, I think, keeping that in mind when you work with youth, and if you want to work in those areas, this is a conversation that I love to have over the years, and because it's so personal for me. And so I just work at earning their trust and including them. Sometimes it might feel like you're not moving fast enough, and others you're going to take leaps and bounds. But once you earn that trust and their buy-in, they're going to be your biggest champions.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful. Yes. Because I know in one of the presentations, it said that like over 70% or about 70%, they know their neighbor's name. And I was just like amazed. I was like, wow, like I don't even think Wenatchee is like at a 20%, so it's just amazing the work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, thanks for raising that. And John, it looks like it's in Naomi.
Michaela, Nicholas, and Megan, first off, just thank you all for taking the time to be here today. And this isn't my question, but I want to emphasize too, I appreciate the conversation around youth, just because I feel like in all the spaces we operate, and even for Thriving Together, it's always felt really hard to understand how to engage youth. And admittedly, we've never done a great job because of that fear. It's not, adults just feel different. So I just appreciate that conversation. Question I had today, knowing that the topic was around the tribal learning journey, if you guys have any thoughts for individuals listening today, what are like 1 or 2 key things people can think or continue to do just day in or day out to make sure that we're always growing and understanding how we partner better with our local tribes? And I don't know if that makes sense. I kind of jumbled that.
I need you to say it one more time for me.
Just maybe just give 1 or 2 tidbits of advice, knowing that we're talking about tribal learning today. What can people just do day in and day out to continue on this journey and be better partners with the tribes?
I think being aware of some of the initiatives that we're working on, we have lobbyists in the state of Washington that we are supporting bills or we have comments on bills. If we can partner together as partners, wherever you guys are from, if you agree with us, having discussions about those or signing on bills together, looking at the resources that you have and the initiatives that we have and seeing if there's ways that we can crosshatch and work together and um, making cold calls and just what are you guys doing or looking at our social media and keeping up on like we have a Colville Tribes Youth Development page, we have a North Star page. You could probably go through our org chart and Google or search Facebook and find some of our social medias and just keeping up on what we're up to and how we can partner together.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar about making sure you're updated on the projects that the tribes are working on. So one of the first things I suggested to our staff at North Sound ACH was to subscribe to the local newspapers that the tribes put out. That's a really good way to stay informed on what they're working on and, accomplishments that are going on in the tribes. The other thing that I really encourage our staff at North Sound to do is to attend, the open community events that the tribes host. So for us, they happen mostly during the summer, but like the canoe journey landings or the local summer powwows that happen, all of those are open to community. And it's a great way to get to know one another and, um, probably get out of your own comfort zone and participate together.
Just one thing I would want to add, always having an open door, communication, building trust, that goes both ways. That door swings both ways. I've seen so many times across the country where tribes have tried to build those relationships only to have the door shut. I think as times evolve and we learn and about how much the tribes can really help all of our communities, um, the better we are for it. So, when there's initiatives like the North Star, where they are in each community building community coalitions. There's avenues that people and organizations are part of that. That's what coalition building is. And that's one of the things I know Colville's doing an amazing job is they're building this out. I really think when we started it, and I'll kind of say it in a humorous way, I hope, but I always imagine Colville might have some of the bigger struggles when we implement this because their demographics, their situations are so much different than us on the coast. In Lummi, it takes me 5 minutes to drive across our reservation, and here in Colville, I get lost and it takes a couple hours. Right, no phone service, so I'm really having to make sure I know where I'm going. The rural challenges are different, but what I've seen is Colville's really taking and investing into this mindset that we are going to look upriver. And so there's opportunities where when you have leadership in the tribe saying, yes, we're going to do this. Yes, we're going to look at prevention. Yes, we're going to look at community wellness and healing. That does take everybody. Everybody needs to be a part of that. We can't sit there and point the fingers always. No, I really appreciate Colville's leadership because they've really taken this. And I think that from the very beginning to where we are today, Colville is going to be leading all of us in how we look at this. And I'm really appreciative to just be here and help support. Just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Nick. Naomi, you've been waiting with a comment or question.
Yes, thank you. My apologies. My camera is not working at this time. IT has been contacted, so sorry about that. I am curious, and I know this might be off the topic of what we're talking about, but I know that when creating partnerships and so on, is there an MOU or any kind of agreement with the Department of Health, the Washington State Department of Health, for the North Star Initiative survey that you guys are putting out there? Or are students going to have to do both still? I just came to my mind because testing and youth and oh, here we go again, another test. How are you working with the State Department in order to have that be implemented and maybe not data sharing, but adopted by the state?
So we haven't had those discussions with the state because we're discussing those with our local authorities, our local school boards. And when it comes to the Healthy Youth Survey, I can guarantee none of our kids are taking that survey. If they are, there's not enough, maybe 5 to 10. And so we don't get that data back. And so we're going down to the grassroots level and going government to government with our local school districts. And so we're only going to give the survey out in our school districts that our students attend. And I assume the other local tribes will too. And over time, we hope that all tribes in Washington and maybe all school districts will provide this survey. But for right now, we're allowing our parents and students to opt in or opt out on the survey, just like they can with the Healthy Youth Survey. But we're trying to create the advocacy and awareness on why it's important for them to do the survey. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I think I may have with like tribal sovereignty.
One thing I wanted to add, and that's a challenging question, and one I don't know if there's any state employees on here, but I've upset them quite a bit and stirred the pots. Again, the Healthy Youth Survey, when you look at it, it's what, 80 something questions more. When we looked at it, there's questions that we felt weren't appropriate to be asking kids. You know, we can ask kids questions, and you say to a kid, "Do you even have food in your fridge?" You know, what does that do to your psyche? You know, all of us, like, I don't want to admit that. I don't want to talk about those things. And when you look at other things like the poverty reduction work group that had a good report come out, and you know, across the state, unfortunately, Native Americans are affected at 50% of the poverty rate. You know, it does affect us at higher rates than other areas. And it's not something that we want to always champion because that's not who we are. But we're going to get better. I think anytime we see data that we don't like, we can't sit here and just say, oh, poor us. It's no, we have the opportunity now to be our own solution to fix things. And that's what tribes are taking advantage of with this. And um, when we talk about doing the multiple surveys, you know, I think unfortunately the answer from what I've observed is yes, they will do surveys, but as Megan has shared, when you look at how many schools data has been suppressed, the kids aren't taking that anyway. I think there's some flaws in how they're doing it. Again, not saying anything bad about the staff or the intent, because we need that kind of data. The state has been working with the tribes, and they have created a work group where I will give them credit and say they have changed some of their questions. But again, that data survey is only every 2 years, where this is going to be done yearly. So we need to do data more, but we also need to be mindful not to do data burnout, because the more surveys we do, we can get burned out too. And I think lastly, just remembering that when we started this was a demonstration project with the 5 tribes in the state. So this is one of those things that we don't have all the answers, but what we believe is going to come out of this is it's going to improve what the state does. It's going to improve how we look at utilizing data, and it's going to make it better for all of us, whether we're tribal or not. Why we did this in the beginning, and when we met with the former governor in the state, is they said the tribes can do this because of their sovereignty. They can pivot a lot quicker than the state or counties and cities can, because we have to follow different rules. The tribes get to make up their own with their sovereignty, their laws and policies. So the tribes were more nimble to do this. So yeah, unfortunately, yes, multiple surveys now, but that's the intention, is when it shows that it's working, it'll be an improvement for everybody.
Thanks, Nick. Esmail, I think I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've seen your head go up a couple times.
Yeah, I was just trying to you know, listen and try to understand about some of these things. I know, you know, just looking at historically how data has been used and weaponized against communities of color, especially tribal communities. It really begs the question, how are we, you know, going to protect the data and data sovereignty, and how these you know, how this data is used. I think a lot of times the data can be used in a lot of different ways, and it could be focused by what you add and what you don't add to come up with make it say a lot of different things. And so I think that's one of the things that we need to pay attention to. There's a big push right now for data, big data, lots of data. I've seen it. I work for the state. I'm with the Department of Health, the HEAL implementation team. I'm the tribal relations manager. And so I see that there's a lot of this data. And I've seen that the federal government has solicited data from the Department of Health, from the Department of Licensing, and other places where some of this data has been, you know, uh, taken for whatever means that is. And so it's just something that we need to like highlight. I think, looking at the design, sometimes the questions are leading. A lot of times youth are really disengaged with them. How do you get them engaged to really care about the questionnaire? It's just not something that they're just trying to get through and get done. And so a lot of these things, I think, looking at maybe tradition and seeing how we build these relations with our youth, because I think the data usually reflects what we already know. The folks that are connected to community, the folks that are, engaged with community, they know what's happening in the community, know what's happening, in their spaces. And so the data is just kind of more supportive. It's more used to bring resources in, to bring in support from other entities. And so I just want to really think about, or just raise a question to think about, how do we build these relationships with the young people to where their voices is ingrained in the work, and not just like taking samples of like what we need, and looking at whose models are we following, and what models are we following, and how do we get back to thinking outside of, um I guess, like a colonial mind frame of looking at the work, and understanding the work, and looking and asking, how did we do this traditionally? Because every different community probably had their own, or had similar but different ways of implementing youth voice. It really, I think, weaving the youth into the fabric of the community. I think like that's the main kind of like disconnect that we've had through the years, is like youth are in communities but don't really feel like they have a place or a space or an importance. And so just thinking about that, and really grateful for all the work that y'all are doing, because it's so important. And looking at these different models, I learn something new every time I come to these spaces and listen to the work and the intent and the care that is going into it, and having, folks that are actually from the community working in the community. I think that that's also something that should be elevated and highlighted, because that's also super important to have folks that have that traditional knowledge, or carry that knowledge with them in these spaces, and know how to follow protocols in communities, and respect how things move in these communities, and not interrupt communities with our own needs. We go in and we want to take what we need for our specific project, and that's an extractivist mentality. And so just applaud you all for taking the care, and taking the time to do these things. And it's all a learning process. And I'm just happy to be able to learn from you all. So thanks. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wish Margaret could join the call. She's from Planet Youth, and like I mentioned, it's in over 26 countries. So Zambia was one of the examples that they shared at the conference last spring. And just the fact that some of the questions that we ask are in this negative mindset, like, do you think school is boring? We're not going to say, do you feel prepared for class? Um, we're looking at it from their point of view. And Margaret has mentioned, because we're like, why are we asking this question like this? It's negative. Like, we already know what they're going to say. But with her research and over time, how many surveys they've given out, like they've learned so much from their communities and how to respond to that. And so in Zambia, they were curious about like sexual abuse, and they learned that the boys were sexually abused more than the girls. And just creating coalitions and partnerships specifically for that. It brought up a lot in their community, and that's what we're hoping to do is kind of uncover like those dark secrets, like family secrets, things that happen because of trauma that we've been dealing with all these challenges for generations. And so now we're actually going to ask these questions, these hard questions, so these young people can tell us what they're dealing with. And um, yeah, when it comes to the data sovereignty, though, like we're fortunate because we do have a partner like Planet Youth who will take that information. And like Nick said, like the state of Washington, I don't know how long it takes for them to look at their healthy youth survey, but we don't get data back from them. But with Planet Youth, it's going to be a swift 6 to 8 week turnaround. And with our partnership with the Portland Area Indian Health Board, they know about our sovereign rights and they know about protecting our information, and they know that each tribe has its own right to the data. And so we're hoping with that background and those partnerships that we can secure the data and use it to our advantage and not to the federal government's advantage or the state's advantage. Like we're asking these questions so we can make a difference in our community, and we're going to own the answers at the end, not the state.
Yep. Thanks for that, Megan. And yeah, as we're looking at the time, this is such a, rich conversation that I'm hoping we'll get a chance to bring into the summit. I'll just quickly say that just all you've shared with the North Star Initiative sounds like it's really flipping some of this work around data and making it actionable and asset oriented, more holistic. There's a lot of possibility and a lot of connection with what, Thriving Together North Central Washington's up to. So really excited about that and the opportunity to be proximate with each other. And yeah, Veronica, I'm going to swing it back over to you.
Yes, thank you, Monty. I am dropping some links in the chat for you all as I quickly cover, um, what's next for network and just network announcements. So we have our three chais. And so I'm adding the link to the three chais on our chat. And so Okanagan Chai, they have a meeting tomorrow at noon in OMAC. They'll be highlighting cross-sector actions for young people experiencing instability. OVOF, they will be hosting their December symposium, December 11th. So save the date for that if you're in the area. And that will be focused on mental health. The Grant Chai, they had an amazing food event earlier this spring, summer, and will be focusing their next event on transportation. So stay tuned on that. And I just encourage you all to get involved with your local chais and explore additional ways that you can contribute to our region's network efforts. And yeah, with that being said, the last link that I will add into the chat is our summit registration. So we'll have our summit October 22nd. That's a Wednesday. We're just excited to gather in person and continue building connections across the region. So thank you so much for today's speakers and for each and every one of you for showing up, sharing, and learning together. Your participation is what keeps the network strong and alive. So thank you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day.